We've heard about SMS, the power of that in our brand interview. We heard about Messenger from Recart. We've heard a little bit about email and some automations for that from Privy. Now we get to tie it all together in a cohesive omni-channel strategy. And why omni-channel? Like why it makes you more money, which is what Greg's really going to get into today. Hey, Greg, how's it going?
Doing well, Derek. How are you?
Doing great. Things are going really well here. I think we've dropped a lot of knowledge bombs really quick at people, and hopefully there's some reasonably good information overload. And I think this talk will be kind of icing on the cake to tie together a few of the other sessions we've had. So I will just step aside and let you take it away. Guys, it's Greg from Omnisend.
Very good. Thanks, Derek. Hopefully my screen is showing up perfectly for everyone
Looks
here.
great.
So, all right. So welcome everyone. I know omnichannel, it's kind of the topic du jour. And I always tell people when we talk about omnichannel, it sounds big, it sounds scary. And yes, it can be, but it doesn't have to be. And that's kind of the talk I'm going to give today is about showing you practical, tangible, scalable ways to do it, however suits your brand best. So very quickly, before we jump in, 30-second elevator pitch on who Omnisend is, because that's what we do. We are a marketing automation platform built for e-commerce. We offer D2C brands multiple channels, including email, SMS, push, Facebook Messenger, Facebook and Google Ad Sync, visual automated workflows, 24/7 support, and a whole bunch more. So you can find more on omnisend.com. But certainly we are a lot of different things under a single roof, which is great. So that is something that you should definitely check out if you're doing any sort of email marketing now and want to take it maybe to the next level here. So as I mentioned, omnichannel can sound very scary for a lot of people here, but really it doesn't have to be. And I think where omnichannel fits into this, and you've been hearing it all day from the different presenters here, but we all know that the customer journey is no longer a linear journey. And really what that means from a marketer standpoint is that we need to touch people in different ways. And it doesn't mean we need to be everywhere at the same time. Doesn't mean we need to be doing 20 different channels. We need to do what's right for us. But the problem from a marketer standpoint is when that model shifts from somewhat more predictable to we don't know what's going on at any given time, right? There's distraction, there's mobile phones, there's desktops, all these different things that marketers are really struggling to create and manage engaging messaging. And that's really what it's about. I think when you boil it all down to the most simplistic form, it's engaging messaging that is relevant to the consumer. And we need to admit it, we live in a batch and blast world now. It's never really gone away. Segmentation's been the topic du jour for the last 15 years. And segmentation like omnichannel can be complex or it can be simplistic how you want to do it. I think the trick is now to recognize that this customer journey model is all over the place. What can we do to make it a little bit better and harness it for our own power? And this is really where the concept of omnichannel comes in. And by adding additional channels, we can improve the performance of one channel versus the other. We can improve the conversion performance, but we can see 287% higher purchase rate from campaigns that use multiple channels, so 3 or more. And this is where e-commerce marketers are really seeing the difference. It's not just about adding channels. It's about being smarter at the same time with the channels you're currently doing. Email, obviously, from an Omnisend standpoint, is where the crux of that being smarter and delivering a better customer experience comes in. So I'm going to walk you through maybe 4 ways to increase customer retention today. Customer retention, I would say a lot of people think about this is what happens at the end of the day. Someone goes ahead and makes a purchase, and now we want to retain that customer. I mean, the fact is that the retention really starts at the beginning. It's the second you acquire some sort of interaction with a customer, your retention starts building it that way. So how do we take what we're doing now, walk them through that journey, get to conversion, and then engage and maintain and harness and nurture that relationship there. So when we look at 4 ways to increase retention, I'm going to start one, and this is where the omnichannel comes in. And let's start talk about SMS. We probably heard it today so far, but SMS is one of those growing mediums that consumers are looking to get into. But it can be a standalone channel, but really the way we think about this is find a way to use it from a complementary term. And the easy way to do that is to, 1, start collecting SMSs. So it's a very simplistic way to do it is, add it to your pop-up or your general sign-up or your exit intent sign-ups and start collecting the SMSs there. Here's the thing that a lot of retailers will get into, and they'll say, well, I don't have an SMS program, so I don't want to start collecting it until I'm ready to actually launch an SMS program. I think it's a backwards way to do a thing, and here's why. If you collect it now, your audience is now telling you from an opt-in standpoint which channels they would like to hear from. So if you collect it now and people are giving you their SMS, they're saying, yeah, I'm all about this right here. So that's really where the collecting it before you're ready to launch comes in. It tells you with some sort of proof if your audience is willing to do that. And again, one of the things with SMS is it used to be, if you look 5 years ago from a retailer standpoint, it used to be a little more cost prohibitive to get into. That's no longer the case. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't mean you can't do it for relatively cheap. And it doesn't mean it has to scale more expensively either. So a lot of these barriers to adopting SMS has really come down. Now, another reason you should look at it is if you look at the changing demographic generational cohorts in the country and the world in general, we look at Gen Z, which is the youngest generation. I guess technically not the youngest now. I think Gen Alpha might be the youngest, but the youngest usable generation, let's say, makes up about 25% of the US and global population right now. So, we have the majority of them that are scared to be away from their phones for any length of time whatsoever. But on top of that, and this is where the complementary tool comes in, is that they plan on increasing or maintaining their email usage over the next 5 years as well. So if we put these two things together and say, yeah, they're interacting on SMS, they're still interacting on email, they are mutually opt-in channels. So unlike social media, when they're on Snapchat or TikTok and they're seeing ads, they're not necessarily opting in for those channels. With email and SMS, they are opting into the channels. And we recently put out a COVID-19 email marketing benchmark report. So we looked at over 2 billion emails sent before the kind of pandemic went full scale and then through the pandemic. And one of the things we found is, email is a trusted opt-in channel, and SMS is very much the same. It can be a very well-trusted SMS channel. Now, when I was putting this presentation together a couple of days ago, I'm sitting on my couch doing some things, and this is a SMS that I received from a retailer, and I haven't purchased from Venus in a while. I usually buy my wife something there every now and then, but I see the SMS and I read it right away. And the majority that we do see is that within the first 4 minutes, the majority of those SMSs are actually read for people. So we can get in front of them and make a very time-effective communication from a retail standpoint. And that's what it's about. It's really about finding ways to use it. Yes, you can integrate it into workflows, which I'll show you some of that today and improve the experience. But if you have a flash sale or a sale is expiring, and think about the Christmas season coming up, we have a promotion that's going to be extending or wrapping up there, or we have an underperforming one and we want to give a little boost to it. SMS is a great way to do that. So, we can generate and work these SMS messages into however we want. We can send them standalone. We can integrate them into automated workflows to kind of combat any sort of delay in timing, whatever it might be. We do have a client who is using SMS inside of some of the workflows, and their SMS messages alone are driving 50% of their promotional campaign revenue. So if you think about that, these are just single one-off communications or into the workflows, and they're driving 15% of their email and SMS revenue combined. So huge benefits. And the beauty of doing it now is that while it's increasingly being adopted by retailers, not a lot of retailers are actually doing it on a full scale. So if you can adopt early, get that communication coming early, you can get in ahead of the pack, and everyone else will be playing catch up by that time. So SMS can carry along a lot of different ways, and I'll show you how to sprinkle that in through the other programs today. Now, when we talk about welcome messages, right? And I mentioned before, the retention comes before the purchase in a lot of cases, right? We want to build that rapport. And welcome messages, it's a whole different experience because we have traditional best practices that were set while that customer journey was still somewhat linear, but those best practices have not really changed a whole lot. So this is your opportunity with a brand new potential customer to really jump in, customize your messaging, make it more relevant, but really stand out and differentiate yourself from your competitors. So if we look at really consumer expectations nowadays, we see that the majority of consumers do expect a form of personalization. It's now expected because they're giving away information. They know companies have so much more at their disposal. Question is, how do we do it in a scalable fashion? How do you, maybe as the only person doing your email marketing, how do you find the time to do it? How do you find the time to send more relevant messages? Because mentioned segmentation, it can be very simple to do and it can be extremely complex to do. But ultimately, when we talk about personalizing messages, it boils down to segmenting. So we put a benchmark report out for 2019 email benchmarks. And this is really what we saw from a segmentation standpoint. It's really higher engagement, higher opens, higher clicks, higher conversions, right? These are things that really matter from an email marketer standpoint. So the question becomes, how do we take this segmentation? How do we apply it to a welcome series to increase conversions of the welcome series, increase better communication, increase a better brand experience for it, and do it in a scalable way for you? So I'll walk you through that. So this is a pretty typical welcome series, I would say. It's a welcome message that's kind of generic. Hey, thanks for joining, blah, blah, blah. Here's a call to action. Maybe there's an incentive in there. We got this traditional managed preference message. Hey, tell us more about yourself. And then the traditional social media invite message. It's a pretty common series. Nothing necessarily wrong with the series. It's what every retailer is going to send you. But the managed preference message is, unless you're going to use that data in the welcome series, you're not going to collect enough of it. It's just the fact of it. It's going to be maybe 15% of openers of the actual message is going to go through and manage your preferences. You only say you get a 40 or 50% open rate, a very small majority. And then you're segmenting that small set if you're actually using the information. So we want to talk about differentiating this, again, in a scalable fashion. Simple way to do it, if we're talking about fashion and retail or fashion apparel, ask. There's always something that separates one category or one set of your customer base from the other. Fashion, a lot of times it could be male, female, very simplistic, high level, but a good example. It could be product categories. So, handbags versus dresses, or formal wear versus lounge wear, whatever it might be at that point. But think about ways where you can simply collect an email and hopefully SMS, but collect the information at the same time. One piece of information can do wonders for you. Really what this can be is you could do something like this where you say male, female. And I mean, this is not a wow factor welcome message here because there's minute differences, but it is a little more appealing to the actual person coming in. Oh yeah, those are shoes. Those are cute. I don't necessarily care about the women's multicolored shoes, but some of the other ones might appeal to me more. So again, it's about these small, simple steps to cater to the actual interest in the consumer who is considering purchasing from you. Another way to do it beyond just asking for that one piece of information and splitting your streams or splitting your messages is to actually do it without the customer really knowing. And if you think about these two customers on these two pages, for example, we could see we have a female who's checking out jumpsuits, and we have a male, probably like me, who's checking out these t-shirts, look super soft, super thin, super comfortable, right up my alley. But what are we doing when we capture the information? When I'm viewing this category of products on your site and a pop-up comes up, or I sign up on the footer or in the one of the rails that come out, or even the exit intents, what do we know about me? We know that I am viewing a product when I said, yep, I want to get your emails, right? So there's some sort of customer intent that they are giving to at that point. And if you have, even if the sign-up form looks identical, but you deploy it on different categories of your page, what you can do is you can simply put a tag in there and say, yep, when this person signed up, they're viewing women's jumpsuits. When this person signed up, they're viewing men's t-shirts. And what we can do there is, again, we can do different welcome messages. We can also split this out to a completely different series. So we funnel the jumpsuits down and we show different product recommendations. We do different value adds. We do things that maybe appeal to them a little bit more. And maybe if we want to get even more complex, we start talking about click data, where on my side, I'm going to get the graphic tee t-shirts, or I'm going to get the soft t-shirts, and maybe men's shoes recommendations, or just different types of messaging that are automated, that chances are you probably have that content from promotional messages you've sent anyways. And you can integrate that into your series and do these slight splits and make them more, more personalized or more relevant to the end consumer. And then if you really want to get complex, and it's not even complex, but if you really want to get a little adventurous, let's say, we take these two messages and maybe we have different navigation bars, or we have different things where we want to start doing click behavior. We can send this and automate this and say, hey, did the user who got the men's t-shirts, what link did they click on the navigation bar? Because again, we want to follow customer intent on here. And if we follow that customer intent, we can feed messages to that person based on filling those needs of intent. So we could say, yeah, Greg clicked on men's shoes over here. He's looking at t-shirts and he navigated over to men's shoes. Let's send a men's shoes email to him. Where on the other side, we could say, hey, they checked out jumpsuits and now they clicked the maternity link inside that email. What does that tell you? Are they shopping for someone else? Maybe they want some maternity products. Maybe they are pregnant themselves. Let's feed them some maternity-oriented messages. So there's a lot of data just by following 1 or 2 little clicks from consumers that you can customize your messages. And of course, you can automate all these things, which again, I always want to tell you things that you can leave the program today. You can go back to your office and you can start streamlining some of this stuff, creating messages and then doing simple automation that splits these people. And there's so many more things you can do with it, but these are small, simple steps that do provide a better and more relevant and unique experience to your customers. Now, worked with a client before where they had this exact problem. They said, okay, we don't want to create these different streams. What we want to do is we're going to send the same welcome message to everyone. It's a nice looking welcome message, but we do have those split categories, and the navigation bar had these high level categories. And they said, we'll take your recommendation, Greg, and we will take this one category. If you click here, instead of giving you a generic welcome message too, we are going to give you a more sales oriented message, but geared around the products based on that click. And here are the results that company have seen. So we see the increase in opens, clicks, conversions, revenue per email, almost 8,000 times better, right? Because it's more targeted. It's also more sales oriented than a traditional welcome series might be, where you're telling a story about your brand, or you're telling them to, manage their preferences to hopefully get the same information that their click is giving to you at the same time. Here's where the juice gets in. So they've been sending the generic version of that message much longer. So with the targeted version, it was 3% of the volume of sends compared to the generic version, and it drove 140% more revenue than the other message did. More targeted, more relevant. We're catering to intent, and we're just listening to what the information they're giving to us is. We're doing these simple automations. So if we think about it, you don't have to do it for every category or every single message, but think about from your particular brand and how you kind of slice and dice your customers and what matters to them at the moment, how you can easily do that from your automation standpoint. So, and it's, again, all about adding in trusted channels here. So if we could do that just with email. We don't have to talk about other channels. So you can optimize without venturing into something else. But if they are opting into things like push notifications or SMS, think about how we can do this again now. So we have a welcome message. We send welcome message 2. They click on this. We send them this version, but they don't convert. They're not doing something. Maybe their welcome incentive is going to expire, and then we can send an SMS to those people. Or if they don't open message 1, instead of just resending message 1, we can send them an SMS and be like, hey, welcome to the club. We want you to come back, check out all the hot trending topics, whatever trending products we have, and then provide that welcome code back in their form again. So again, if they've opted into an SMS, use it to your advantage because they're telling you that is what we want to get. All right, so from a welcome series standpoint, small, simple things can have a huge difference. I want to talk for a second about abandonment because we're all familiar with cart abandonment, but product abandonment is one of those things that is increasingly being used, but for a lot of good reasons. So we want to take someone who's signed up, maybe they haven't purchased, but they're on the website, they're still in that shopper's mode. How do we target them at this point? So let's think about product or browse abandonment in general, where we see that, again, the majority of consumers, almost an identical stat, expect what they're viewing on a website to be used to personalize email marketing messages. So if we take that in consideration and say, okay, we've noticed you're an email subscriber. We've got you here. We noticed you browsing something, but you've never actually carted a product. We know, again, there's some sort of intent there, not as finite as, say, a shopping cart abandonment, but it gives us a lot of information to send targeted, less generic messages to consumers. So you can see the example here. Hey, did something catch your eye? This is pretty typical. You don't have to be as forward as saying, hey, we've noticed you checking out specific products or specific categories on the website. Here are some other things. You can leave it more generic and make it look like a promotional message you might send any other Thursday of the week. All they know is it's a very relevant message. It's timely to them. Different things like this. So here's where the value of product and browse abandonment really comes in to handy. It's automated, timely messages going out to consumers who are actively shopping. And then again, we're talking about expanding channels. So, hey, we send them an email or a push notification. Have they signed up for SMS? We can send that and say, hey, come back, kind of like Venus did to me yesterday. Hey, we noticed you checking something out. Check out some of our customer favorites. And again, we integrate that social proof into those SMS messages. And we can automate this back and forth and make the determination whether you are indeed you are indeed actively shopping for something. If you are opted in for SMS and not SMS, we can get those different streams for you. So there's a lot of different things we can do there. When we talk about, again, successes and retailers who are doing this, this is from a browse abandonment, where we see increased open rates, conversion rates. Look at the lift in revenue per email, 12% of yearly email revenue generated from automated messages here. If we think about how the welcome message and things like that can go to these huge percentages of email revenue on the back end, we start adding these things together and we are in really good shape here. So bear with me 1 second. Whoop, sorry. Okay, we're good. Thought maybe we lost connection for a second. And then we get to shopping cart abandonment. So we've got someone, they've signed up, they browse the website, they haven't put anything in the cart, we're browsing, let's pull them back. But again, we want to make that customer retention, that experience better to increase the retention later. In a cart abandonment, typically some of the highest performing messages you'll send out of your email program, if not the most. But there's so much you can do with cart abandonment messages to make a better experience and to help convert more. So let's think about all the ways we can do this. Do we send 1 message, 2 messages, 3 messages? Maybe we want to send 4 messages as well, because there's nothing saying you have to stop at 3. Now, do you need 4 messages for a $20 pair of gloves? Probably not. Not something, maybe a more luxury item, $1,500 purse, or a really expensive dress where there's more consideration, sizing guides, things like that. Yeah, maybe so. But we could test timing, we could test verbiage, we could test offers using sense of urgency, and we can do it via multiple channels and a little smarter ways. So here's a way to do that. We could say, okay, they abandoned this shopping cart. What is our free shipping threshold on our website if we have one? Because this might tell us a lot. So maybe it's $100. Okay, if it's under $100, let's send a different message that says, hey, don't forget, free shipping always at $100. That message doesn't really matter to the people that have maybe $300 or $400 in their cart. We can deliver different messaging that overcomes different obstacles to conversion. It could be satisfaction guarantees, return policies, all these different things that might matter to someone spending the extra money versus someone who has a low value cart. We can also look to see whether they're a past purchaser. So, hey, have they never purchased from before? Are they a first-time purchaser, hopefully purchasing a second time? Are they a loyal customer? Because that might dictate the types of messaging or the incentives we want to give them, or the number of messages, or even the channels we want to send to them. So we can do all these things within the cart. And again, we just set these things up to automation and we can have them do the work for us. And again, if we expire carts, maybe, so we hold the cart for 72 hours, think about the timeliness of SMS messages at that point. Hey, Greg, your cart's about to expire. Come back before it sells out, or these items won't last long. Come back, and we know we don't have that lag between when we send the email and we hope the user opens email. Probably going to get the SMS message right within the first couple minutes. So it might be able to spur them along the way as well. So much you can do with shopping cart abandonment. And again, I mentioned the power of these messages. So here's one of our clients who have 15% of email revenue on less than 1% of their email sends. So if we have 15% here and we have 12% there and 18% there, you can see we're having automated messages drive our revenue in the back end. And it allows you more time to do other things to optimize the rest of your program, or to dig more into segmentation or optimize your current messages. The last one today I'm going to jump into, and now we're talking about retention, and we've talked a lot about building retention before the actual purchase. Probably makes sense. We should talk about what happens after the actual purchase now. So I will say, working with retailers for a lot of years, this is probably one of the most underutilized email marketing tactics out there, is post-purchase messaging. And I'm talking well beyond doing something like product review messages or transactional, order shipping confirmation messages. I'm talking about nurturing the customer experience. And say the way the customer ultimately is going to feel about your brand is what happens after they actually make that purchase. We're going to lead up to it, but then they could have a stellar experience before and they want to love your brand and you've done everything right. And they get there and that product is cheap quality, or it doesn't show up, or it shows up 2 weeks later, which might not be your fault, but that's a reflection of your brand and their experience with you. We want to try to overcome that. So I always say, these social proof and, hey, share your images with us, especially with fashion, right? I always say, if someone buys something from you and they don't share it on social, did it actually happen? And it's kind of a funny way to say you don't have to have them share images wearing your products and tag you on social media. But if they're not willing to share it on social, they're probably not willing to tell their friends about it. Your goal is to get them to tell their friends about it, whether it's word of mouth or there. But social right now, I think, is a pretty good indication of whether they are willing to do that. So think about all the ways you can actually have that done without actually having them to prompt them with a message to say, hey, share this on social. I always tell people to look to areas, look to industries outside their own for good examples. And here's one that has nothing to do with fashion and retail. But last year, took my two boys to Legoland down in Florida. Awesome time. They are in the Legos, still are. We've got a bunch of sets downstairs. And these are messages that leading up to our trip, where you can see they're getting you excited about what's coming and they're getting you excited about the purchase you made. And it's like, hey, 30 days out with us. And then they're giving recommendations for things to do or restaurants to eat at, or, when to make reservations at the restaurants in the hotel. And then afterward, they circle all back and like, hey, they want the reviews on TripAdvisor. So tell us what you think. These messages really struck the emotional part of it. And of course, vacations are probably more emotional than fashion. But right now, with everyone being inside, I don't buy a lot of clothes. I buy super soft clothes. I'm dying to go out and to wear something new and just to feel normal again. So I think if you can find ways to pull emotion like these do out of me, if you do that with your customers, your post-purchase series, types of messages you can deliver are going to be so impactful for you. If you think about, yes, you can provide them incentive to shop again. Nothing wrong with that. You could send them a message that just says, hey, thanks for shopping. We appreciate you. If there's something you could do, call us here, email us here, and leave it at that. You can have how-to, so how to use the product better, or product care instructions. Make sure here's how to waterproof it or properly wash something. Those are messages that show you care, but provides inherent value for you. I should say with these Lego themes here, we also did book the pirate themed room in the hotel. So these are all queued up for the pirates. So again, it's a small little touches that go a long way for you. And then from a workflow standpoint, again, how do we make things better? How do we optimize it to make a better experience? Well, it's easy. Are they a first-time customer? If so, let's send them this series. Are they a second-time customer? If so, they probably need some slightly different messaging. Are they a loyal customer? If so, they probably don't need a 4-part series. Maybe it's just a text or SMS. SMS or push notification that says, hey, thanks for being a customer. We appreciate your business. Carry on. So think about the streams you can do for your individual customers and what matters most to them. And then finally, think about the different channels you can add. And it doesn't have to be all channels, but you can send them an SMS. We could do Facebook Messenger. We could do all these different things. What matters most to them? And here are some stats from just a simple thank you message that has no call to action, customer service oriented, and these are open rates, conversion rates, and revenue per email on post-purchase messages. We've enhanced the experience so well that they want to come back to buy again. And that's really what it's all about here. So, when I talk about adding channels and I talk about omni-channel, again, it doesn't have to be complex. We can do it with 1 or 2 people in a marketing department. We can slow, steady iterations and scale at will. So, think beyond single channels, but you don't have to think every channel at the same time. Think about SMS, I think, is the low-hanging fruit, the easier cost barrier entry. So play around with it, see what you could do, make it relevant for you. And relevance can fight email fatigue and marketing fatigue all day long. But again, think about SMS, email, all these other channels where you have to opt into their own channels. People are telling you they want to hear from you. You have a leg up. You have a little bit differentiator there. It's what you do with that differentiator that ultimately matters. And at the end of the day, if you're focusing on the customer journey, you're in really good shape. So, again, retention happens at all different stages. Follow it. And walk through, it's like if you own a rental house or sometimes you rent a house somewhere and you're like, oh, I wish they would have done this. Walk through as a customer. Where are you missing the boat? And actually live the life of your customer. If you're curious about workflows, check out omnisend.com. We have a recent paper about must-have workflows for every retailer, so feel free to dig around there. If you have any questions for me specifically or anything I could do for you, my email address is right there on the screen, greg@omnisend.com. I'm an open book. Feel free to shoot me an email, whatever you want to do, and I'll be happy to get back to you, provide some guidance, recommendations, whatever you need to. But best of luck to you, and I hope you're able to tomorrow start implementing some of these tactics, at least in a small scale. Oh, and Derek, I'm sorry, I don't think I have you. Hang
Oh,
on.
can you
There
hear
you
me
are.
now?
Yeah, there you are.
Something must have happened with my microphone.
That's that
Okay.
tricky mute.
Well, yeah. So thank you so much. I've just linked everyone this ebook here in the chat, and that like just go to OmniSend and go to the library. There are so many good ebooks there. Seriously, just like browse through and download them all, and take your time, kind of picking and choosing the ones that are right for you. But there are a ton of opportunities hidden here within marketing automation, within segmentation. And Greg, you nailed so many of them. But it's like it's an endless thing, and for every single brand that's listening right now and watching, it's going to be different for you how you segment, and it can really change the game. You'll know what the segmentation should be, just the same way that Nick from a session earlier was talking about research from the customer standpoint. That research and the customer development and talking to people on the phone, that'll trigger something inside you that's like, oh, we should create a segment for people that do this. And then I bet those people will convert better off of this. They'll retain better off of this. And then you watch the revenue roll in and you go, what's the next segment I can create? You can just start small, find one segment, branch into your two major segments like men and women first, then go into different product categories. And from there, in a year or two, you'll have the full-fledged system done. It's an ongoing process, I would say.
Yeah. And I think the important thing there as well is, imagine there's so many tools that like product abandonment is just segmentation on just an active scale. So there's so many tools that you can use that will help you self-segment, where you're not going to get inundated with having to manually create a bunch of segments. But you're right. Start small if you are manually creating them, and just build from there. That's the goal with everything.
Yeah. And one of the things you said in your just a few minutes ago was, if someone buys your product and doesn't share it on social, did it really happen? And I thought that was amazing and hilarious, because so many people are optimizing for conversion, just like purchases and revenue. And you know what? Revenue is important. But what if you changed like your bottom of funnel metric to optimize for social sharing? And then you optimize like your Facebook ads all the way down to the point where you start targeting the people that are more likely to share on social about your brand. That's really fascinating to me, because it can increase your referral coefficient. And that's exactly what our next session is all about. So Greg, thank you so much for this presentation. I think you dropped some huge knowledge bombs, and I really hope people take it to heart, because it's a little bit of work, but everything you recommended and the way you showed it to us here drives some of the most value you can get in your business. So
Great. Thank you, Derek.